Welcome to Soul Stories, where every tale touches the heart, inspires the mind, and stays with the soul. 81-year-old Army veteran Bill Carter sat quietly in a small roadside diner, just as he did every morning. It was a place where the waitresses knew his name, the cook always greeted him with a nod, and the smell of fresh coffee made him feel a little less lonely. Bill's hands trembled, a reminder of age and old injuries. But his spirit, his discipline, his pride, all remained as solid as the boots he used to march in. The diner was calm, sunlight spilling softly through the windows, dust floating like tiny stars in the air. Bill wrapped his wrinkled fingers around his cup, savoring the warmth. For him, this diner wasn't just a stop, it was a piece of routine, the last bit of normalcy in a world that had changed far too quickly. Then the peace shattered. The door burst open with a loud clang as a young thug stormed inside. He wore torn jeans, a dirty jacket, and an attitude thick enough to choke the room. He kicked a chair out of his way, muttering curses, demanding service even though the waitress was already busy. Customers exchanged uneasy glances, their quiet breakfast replaced by a creeping tension. Bill watched him for a moment. He had seen men like this before, angry, lost, reckless. In his years of service, he had learned that violence often came from pain, not strength. With a calm breath, he spoke gently, his voice steady despite age. "Son, no need to cause trouble. Just have a seat. Let the lady do her job." The thug froze, then slowly turned toward Bill. A moment of silence hung heavy, pressing down on the room. The man walked closer, his lips curling into a wicked grin. "You talking to me, old man?" Before Bill could even respond, the thug slapped him across the face. The sound cracked through the diner like a gunshot. Bill's glasses flew to the floor, skidding across the tiles and stopping near a booth. His head jerked to the side, and he felt a sting he hadn't felt in decades. Not from the slap, but from the sheer disrespect. The entire diner gasped, silverware clattered, a spoon dropped, and someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Bill didn't raise his hands. He didn't fight back. He simply placed a trembling palm on the table and steadied himself. The pain didn't bother him. It was nothing compared to what he had endured in his youth. But the humiliation, the disregard for an old man who had served his country, cut deeper than any wound. He lowered his head, not out of fear, but out of sorrow. And the diner fell silent, every eye filled with shock and helpless anger. Just when the diner had fallen into a suffocating silence, the door swung open again. The old metal bell above it gave a sharp chime, echoing through the room like a warning. Everyone turned to eye. In the doorway stood a tall, broad-shouldered biker. Jake Carter, the only son of Bill Carter. Leather jacket, heavy boots, gloves tucked at his belt, and most unmistakable of all, the red and white patch of the Hells Angels spread across his back like a banner of authority. His presence alone shifted the atmosphere. The tension, once caused by the thug, suddenly began to twist in a new direction. Jake scanned the diner with quick, sharp eyes trained from years on the road. He noticed the overturned chair, the trembling waitress, the broken silence in the air. And then he saw it, his father's glasses lying on the floor, one lens cracked. His chest tightened. That Jake's gaze finally landed on Bill, sitting still, one hand pressed to his cheek. Bill tried to straighten up, tried to hide the pain, but Jake saw everything. The redness on his father's face, the slight wobble in his hands, and most of all, the shame in his eyes. Jake felt something heavy settle inside him. Not rage, something deeper, a protective instinct older than breath itself. Without a word, Jake walked over to his father. Each step made the floorboards creak, and every person in the diner felt the storm approaching. Even the thug, who had moments earlier acted fearless, shifted nervously in his seat. Jake reached Bill's table and gently placed a hand on his father's shoulder. The touch was soft, far softer than anyone expected from a biker known for his iron fists and dangerous reputation. Bill looked up, his eyes watering but proud. Jake leaned down, his voice barely above a whisper, but sharp enough to slice through the silence. "Who did this?" The question wasn't loud. It wasn't angry, but the weight behind it made even the clock seem to stop ticking. Bill didn't answer immediately. He swallowed, trying to protect his son from what was coming. He didn't want Jake to get involved, didn't want trouble, didn't want the past to repeat itself. But the trembling of his lower lip gave him away. Jake straightened and slowly turned his head, scanning every face in the diner. And then the thug made the biggest mistake of his life. He smirked that it was small, barely noticeable, but Jake caught it. The Hells Angels' jaw clenched, muscles tightening like coiled steel. The room held its breath. Everyone knew justice had just walked in.
We need to talk about this now.
There's nothing to discuss.
Boys, let's keep it civil.
Loudly, old man got in my way. The words echoed in Jake's chest like fuel thrown onto a flame that he didn't explode. He didn't shout, that he simply removed his gloves, one finger at a time, placing them calmly on the counter. The slow, deliberate movement sent a shiver through the room. The waitress covered her mouth. The cook peeked from the kitchen. Every customer knew what that gesture meant. Outside, the thunder of motorcycle engines rumbled. A moment later, the diner door opened, and in walked two more Hells Angels, heavy boots tapping against the tile. Their faces were unreadable, their presence commanding. One more biker followed, then another, until the diner felt smaller, swallowed by a quiet, dangerous calm. The thug's smirk slowly faded. Jake stepped forward, not rushing, not intimidating on purpose, just moving with the steady, deadly confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was capable of. He stopped just inches from the thug's table. His voice dropped low, calm enough to terrify. "You don't touch a veteran." The thug swallowed hard. Jake leaned closer, his jaw tight. "And you don't touch my father." The biker standing behind Jake, a giant with tattoos crawling up his neck, cracked his knuckles. Another shifted his weight, ready for anything. They didn't need to say a word. Their silence carried history. The thug attempted one last show of bravery, pushing his chair back loudly, but as he stood, his legs wobbled. The shadows of the bikers around him felt heavier than chains. Jake lifted a hand, not to hit, but to stop his own men from moving forward. This wasn't a gang fight. This was a father's honor. He tilted his head. "You think being loud makes you strong?" He stepped closer. "You tried to bully an old man. My old man." His voice hardened. "That's not strength. That's cowardice." The thug's breathing turned shaky. He tried looking around the diner for help, but every customer turned their eyes away. No one was going to save him. Jake didn't need to raise a fist. Sometimes fear is delivered through silence, not violence. Within seconds, the thug's tough act collapsed and he began trembling, hands up, voice stuttering apologies. "Please. I didn't know. I didn't mean, just let me go." Jake stepped aside, giving him a path to the door. "Get out," he said quietly. "And remember this moment every time you think about raising your hand at someone weaker than you." The thug stumbled out of the diner so fast he nearly tripped over himself. The moment the door slammed behind him, the diner finally breathed again. The moment the boy whispered the man's name, all three bikers fell silent. They didn't need to ask twice. They knew exactly who he meant. Raheem, the vulture. A known loan shark. A bully who preyed on the poor, threatening families, taking their belongings, and trapping them in fear. He had caused trouble in the neighborhood many times, and the bikers had crossed paths with him before. He always targeted the weak. Widows, laborers, old couples. Anyone who couldn't fight back. Bilal clenched his fist at Rafri's jaw tightened as Zion's eyes filled with fire. "Of course it's him," Rafri muttered. "He never stops." The mother lowered her eyes, afraid, as if even speaking Raheem's name invited danger. "I didn't want to tell anyone," she whispered. "He said, if I complain, he'll take my son too." The boy held his mother tighter, fear trembling in his small shoulders. That was the last straw. Zion placed a reassuring hand on the boy's head. "No one is taking anything now. Not your things, not your peace, not your future." They quickly made a plan. Bilal stayed with the mother and her son, making sure they felt safe, while Rafwi and Zion stormed out of the construction site. Engines roaring like thunder as the two bikers raced through the streets. People moved aside, sensing something serious. They weren't riding for style now. They were riding with purpose. They reached Raheem's small office, an old building near the mechanic shops. It was dimly lit, smoke-filled, and filled with fearful silence. Raheem sat inside, counting money, his feet resting arrogantly on a stool. He didn't even look up at first. When he did, his smirk faded. Rafri punched the table so hard the coins jumped. "Where are the things you took from that widow?" Raheem tried to laugh it off. Business is business. She owed, he couldn't finish. Zion grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. She owed nothing, Zion growled. You robbed her. Now you'll return every single thing. Raheem wasn't brave. He only bullied the helpless. Faced with two furious bikers, he folded quickly. Hands shaking, he pointed toward a back room. Inside were piles of belongings he had taken from many families, including the boys, clothes neatly folded, utensils in a bag, blanket rolled up, and the boy's small, blue school bag, with a pencil stuck inside. Within an hour, the bikers returned to the mother, but they didn't return alone. They brought everything that had been stolen: her pots, her clothes, her blankets, even the small photo frame of her late husband. And behind all that walked Raheem himself, forced to apologize, head lowered, fear replacing his arrogance. The mother watched in disbelief, tears filling her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt hope.